Welcome back to Animal Notebook. Today, we're diving into camels, curiosity captured. We're looking at an animal that is honestly practically a biological miracle. We're talking about the ultimate desert machine here. Millions of years of evolution have engineered a creature so perfectly adapted to some of the most unforgiving, hyper-arid environments on Earth that it just completely defies ordinary mammalian limits. But, despite how famous they are, the truth behind how they actually survive is completely misunderstood by most people. So get ready, because we are unpacking the true science behind nature's ultimate desert survivors in today's explainer. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to meet the three camel species, bust the great hump myth right out of the gates, look at how they're engineered for desert warfare, check out the invincible camel mouth, explore their behavior, and yes, T-Rex roars, and finally, talk about their legacy as the ships of the desert.
All right, Section 1. Meet the three camel species.
Okay, let's dive into this. When you hear the word camel, you probably picture just one specific animal, right? But the scientific taxonomy of the Camelida family is actually way richer than that. When we break down the three distinct species alive today, first up you've got the dromedary or Arabian camel. These are the guys with a single hump. They make up a whopping 94% of the world's camel population. That's roughly 30 million of them, and they're entirely domesticated, perfectly adapted for hot, arid climates. Then we have the domesticated Bactrian camel. You can easily spot these guys by their two humps and that really thick coat, which is meant to help them survive the freezing, brutal winters of Central Asian deserts. But there's a third group, the wild Bactrian camel. This is a completely separate, critically endangered species with fewer than 1,000 individuals left in the wild regions of China and Mongolia. And the absolute most mind-blowing fact about them? Their exceptional saltwater tolerance. These incredibly resilient creatures can actually survive by drinking slushy brine that is saltier than ocean seawater. Wow.
Moving on to Section 2. Busting the great hump myth.
So this brings us to what is probably one of the most universally held misconceptions in the entire animal kingdom. It is time to set the record straight on the camel's defining feature. The myth that humps are these giant, sloshing reservoirs filled with water. Nope. Biologically incorrect. The fact is, a healthy adult camel's hump actually stores up to 80 pounds of adipose tissue. That's fat. So the real magic is how they use it. When food is scarce out in the barren desert, the camel's body metabolizes this stored fat into energy. And, this is probably where that whole water myth originated. Through the incredibly complex formulas of cellular respiration, metabolizing just 1 gram of this hump fat actually produces more than 1 gram of water internally. Let's look at how this builds into just a genius survival strategy. Storing fat in a hump isn't just about food and water reserves. It's actually an absolute masterclass in thermal regulation. Think about it. If a camel had a thick layer of fat distributed all over its body, kind of like a whale or a bear, it would literally cook from the inside out under the scorching desert sun. But by concentrating up to 80 pounds of fat into just 1 or 2 localized mounds on their back, the rest of the camel's body is left completely free of insulating fat layers. This allows all their body heat to rapidly radiate away, keeping their vital organs nice and cool even when temperatures are swinging wildly from day to night. Okay, Section 3, engineered for desert warfare. This mastery of thermal regulation, it's really just the beginning. The camel's approach to hydration and dealing with extreme environments is basically biological warfare against the desert itself. Consider this for a second. A camel can endure a severe 30% to 40% loss of its body weight in water. To put that into perspective, just a 15% water loss is instantly fatal to a human being, or even a cow. Now, picturing a serene, peaceful camel drinking at a desert oasis. It sounds calm, right? But internally, what's happening is an extreme biological event. So I want you to take a guess right now. How much volume do you think a severely dehydrated camel can consume in just a single sitting? The answer is 30. 30 gallons of water. And they can down this massive influx in under 13 minutes. That's enough to fill a large bathtub, all in one go. Now, here's the crazy part. If you or I, or honestly almost any other mammal, tried to rapidly introduce that much water into a severely dehydrated bloodstream, the sudden rush would cause osmotic shock. Our red blood cells would swell up and just burst, a completely fatal condition called hemolysis. But a camel's red blood cells are unique. They're actually oval-shaped rather than circular. This shape not only allows them to flow smoothly through thick, dehydrated blood, but when that camel chugs 30 gallons of water, those cells can safely expand up to 240% of their initial volume without rupturing. Absolutely incredible. And this brilliantly illustrates how literally every single anatomical feature is engineered to resist the environment. Their external armor is just as impressive. Check this out. They have a triple eyelid defense. That's 2 interlocking rows of dense eyelashes to block blowing sand, plus a translucent third eyelid that moves horizontally, kind of like a windshield wiper, so they can actually see during a raging sandstorm. Their slit-like nostrils can voluntarily zip completely shut between breaths to block out dust. And when they need to rest, thick, leathery pedestals on their knees and chest protect them from being burned by sand that can reach a blistering 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh, and when they walk, they don't even have hard hoofs. They have these wide, two-toed feet attached to a fat pad that expands just like a snowshoe, totally preventing them from sinking into loose sand.
Section 4. The invincible camel mouth.
So, as if conquering the heat and sand wasn't enough, they also have to find a way to eat in a landscape that offers practically nothing but thorny brush and dry twigs. Let's look at what scientists essentially consider an indestructible tool. The inside of a camel's mouth is lined with dozens of these raised, cone-shaped structures called papillae. They look kind of alien and strange, sure, but they are incredibly tough because they're made of keratin. That's the exact same structural protein that makes up your fingernails. These papillae shield the delicate cheek tissue, allowing a camel to comfortably chomp down on dense scrub, stiff twigs, and even 3-inch cactus thorns without getting a single scratch. Once those thorns and salty halophytic plants, which, by the way, are just plants specifically adapted to survive in super high salt soil, are swallowed, the camel's highly efficient ruminant digestive system takes over. Much like cows, they have a multi-chambered stomach system that ferments this remarkably tough plant material multiple times over. This process allows them to extract absolutely every last ounce of water and nutritional value from vegetation that most other animals wouldn't even recognize as food.
All right, let's get into Section 5, Behavior and T-Rex Roars. So, we know they're basically biological fortresses, but what is their day-to-day life actually like? Well, behind that stoic desert exterior lies a fascinating social structure and, frankly, some incredible pop culture trivia that will completely change how you watch a certain classic 90s movie. First, there's their famous pacing gait. Now, unlike horses, camels move both legs on the same side of their body simultaneously when they walk. This creates a really distinct rocking back and forth motion that originally earned them the historical nickname the ships of the desert. But contrast that solitary traveler vibe with their actual day-to-day reality. Camels are actually incredibly social. In the wild, they form close-knit harems or bachelor herds of up to 30 individuals. They're led by a dominant male, establishing intimate social bonds and literally traveling together for decades. And they are highly communicative within these herds, too. They use a huge variety of deep roars, groans, and bleats. In fact, if you've ever felt a chill run down your spine while watching the original Jurassic Park, well, you were actually listening to a camel. Seriously, sound designers literally recorded and modified the loud, high-pitched shrieks of camels to create the iconic, terrifying roar of the Hollywood T-Rex. How wild is that? Okay, another really famous behavioral quirk is their reputation for spitting. But we definitely need to correct this assumption right now. They aren't actually spitting saliva. When a camel is highly agitated or feels threatened, they bring up sour, partially digested green fluid straight from their stomach, essentially cud, and they launch it at their target with absolute sniper-like accuracy. Let me tell you, it is a highly effective, incredibly foul-smelling deterrent. You do not want to be on the receiving end of that. And finally, Section 6, Ships of the Desert. These unique behaviors and unparalleled biological adaptations didn't just allow camels to survive, they literally paved the way for human civilization as we know it. Roughly 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, over in the Arabian Peninsula, humans domesticated the camel. And without that single, monumentally important event, ancient transcontinental trade networks, like the legendary Silk Road and the vast punishing routes across the Sahara Desert, would have been completely impossible. They were quite literally the only animals capable of carrying heavy loads across these deadly terrains. And they provided us with so much more than just a way to move goods. They were the ultimate all-in-one resource for early desert societies. Not only did they provide heavy labor and transportation, but their milk is incredibly nutritious. It's actually much higher in vitamin C and iron than cow's milk. They provided meat and hides for clothing. Even their waste is hyper-efficient. A camel's kidneys are so good at retaining water that their feces come out completely dry. This allowed nomadic people, like the Bedouins, to use them immediately as fuel for fires. to this day, they remain absolutely essential agricultural and cultural cornerstones all across Africa, Asia, and even Australia. Which brings us to a pretty stark reality to close out our explainer today. We have an animal perfectly engineered over millions of years to survive the world's harshest, most deadly environments. I mean, they can drink salt water, survive brutal heat waves, and endure starvation. Yet, ironically, the purely wild Bactrian species is now critically endangered. They're being pushed to the brink, not by the harsh desert, but by human impact, habitat loss, and competition. It really makes you wonder, what does the future hold for nature's ultimate survivor? Thank you all so much for tuning into this Animal Notebook explainer. Let me know down in the comments which camel adaptation blew your mind the most, and keep your curiosity captive.